History is often written by the victors, but legends are born when the impossible happens. To understand the miracle, you first have to understand the monster. In 1980, the Soviet Union's hockey team wasn't just a team, they were a machine, a juggernaut. They had won the last 4 Olympic gold medals. They hadn't lost an Olympic game since 1968. They were professional soldiers who played hockey full-time, led by legends like goaltender Vladislav Tretiak and captain Boris Mikhailov. They played with a fluid, surgical precision that the world had never seen. Against NHL All-Stars, they dominated. Against the rest of the world, they were untouchable. Entering Lake Placid, the question wasn't if they would win gold, but by how many goals they would crush their opponents. Standing in their way was not a team of professionals. It wasn't a roster of seasoned veterans. It was a group of college kids, average age, 21. They were drawn from rival schools, Boston University and the University of Minnesota, boys who had spent years hating each other on the college circuit. Their coach, Herb Brooks, was a visionary and a taskmaster. He knew he couldn't beat the Soviets at their own game with traditional North American hockey. He had to break these boys down to build them back up as a unit. He conditioned them until their legs burned and their lungs screamed. He wasn't trying to be their friend. He was trying to make them survive. His philosophy was simple. You don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. Just 3 days before the Olympics began, the US and the Soviets played an exhibition match at Madison Square Garden. The result was a massacre. The Soviets won 10-3. It was a brutal reality check that seemed to confirm what everyone already knew. The Americans were lambs being led to the slaughter. But then, the tournament started. The US team, fueled by adrenaline and a raucous home crowd in Lake Placid, began to find a rhythm. They tied Sweden. They beat Czechoslovakia. Suddenly, the impossible matchup was set. February 22nd, 1980, the medal round. The United States versus the Soviet Union. The arena was packed. The political tension of the Cold War hung heavy in the air. For the fans, this was more than hockey. It was ideology on ice. The puck dropped, and the Soviets did exactly what they always did. They attacked. They scored early, but the Americans didn't fold. They countered with a slap shot from Buzz Schneider. The game became a grind. The Soviets were faster, stronger, and more skilled, but the Americans were stubborn. They were playing with a desperation that the Soviets hadn't encountered before. Then, a moment of chaos changed everything. With 1 second left in the first period, the Soviets cleared the zone, thinking the time had expired. But Mark Johnson didn't stop. He picked up the loose puck, split the defense, and fired it past the best goalie in the world, Tretiak. The score was tied 2-2. The Soviets were stunned. In a move of panic, the Soviet coach pulled the legendary Tretiak from the game. The armor had cracked. Entering the third period, the Soviets led 3-2. In the past, this is where they would suffocate their opponents. But Herb Brooks' conditioning kicked in. The Americans weren't tired, they were flying. At 8:39 of the third period, Mark Johnson scored again to tie it. The building was shaking. 81 seconds later, the captain, Mike Eruzione, found the puck in the slot. He didn't hesitate. He snapped a wrist shot past the backup goalie. 4-3. For the first time, the United States had the lead, but there were still 10 minutes left. 10 minutes against the greatest offensive machine in history. The Soviets launched wave after wave of attacks, but Jim Craig, the American goalie, became a brick wall. He turned away shot after shot. The Soviets began to panic, dumping the puck in rather than passing, abandoning the style that made them great. The clock ticked down. 5 seconds. 4, 3. The crowd began a countdown that would echo through history. Al Michaels, calling the game for ABC, delivered the most famous line in sports broadcasting. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. Bedlam. Pure, unadulterated joy. The Soviets stood at the blue line, watching the Americans celebrate, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The college kids had beaten the juggernaut. They went on to defeat Finland to secure the gold, but the victory against the Soviets was the moment the world stopped. It remains the greatest sporting upset of the 20th century, a reminder that on any given day, heart, grit, and belief can overcome impossible odds. It wasn't just a hockey game, it was a miracle.